Here we are on Sister Maid Woodworks. We're doing Bible study on Tuesday, September the 10th. Had to look back at the clock to see what the date is. And today we're going to talk about the race. So we're going to just go and we're going to read Hebrews chapter 12. We're starting here in 12. And in this book, it's 1,759 page. But we're going to talk about the race. So, do you want to start with prayer again?
Okay. Dear Father, we come to you today and ask that you would show us blessings in your word, dear Father, that we can remember and apply to our life, dear Father. And we thank you for this day, and we thank you in advance for what you're going to accomplish in our lives today. And Lord, I just want to thank you for me receiving my car back there, Father.
Yes.
And I just want to ask that you be with us and be with your word that you showed to us, dear Father, and open up our eyes to see it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Okay. Hebrews chapter 12. Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight, and the sin which doth so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us. Looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that has set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him that endured such contradiction of sinners against himself, lest ye be wearied and faint in your minds. Ye have excuse me. Ye have not yet resisted unto blood, striving against sin. And ye have forgotten exhortation which speaketh unto you as unto children. My son, despise not thou chastening of the Lord, nor faint when thou art rebuked of him. For whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth. If ye endure chastening, God dealeth with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? But if ye be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then ye are bastards and not sons. Furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh, which corrected us, and we gave them reverence. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the Father of spirits and live? For they verily of a few days chastened us after their own pleasure, but he for our profit, that we might be partakers of his holiness. Now no chastening for the present seemeth to be joyous, but grievous. Nevertheless, afterward it yieldeth peaceable fruit of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby. Wherefore lift up the hands which hang down, and feeble knees, and make straight paths for your feet, lest that which is lame be turned out of the way, but let it rather be healed. Follow peace with all men and holiness, without which no man shall see the Lord. Looking diligently, lest any man fail of the grace of God, lest any root of bitterness springing up trouble you, and thereby many be defiled. Lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright. For ye know how that afterwards, when he would have inherited the blessing, he was rejected, for he found no place of repentance, though he sought it carefully with tears. Reconnecting. Okay, I don't know where it left off exactly. Lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright. For ye know how that afterward, when he would have inherited the blessing, he was rejected, for he found no place of repentance, though he sought it carefully with tears. For ye are not come unto the mount that might be touched, and that burned with fire, nor unto blackness and darkness and tempest, And the sound of a trumpet and the voice of words, which voice they that heard entreated that word, should not be spoken to them any more. For they could not endure that which was commanded. And if so much as a beast touch the mountain, it shall be stoned, or thrust through with a dart. And so terrible was the sight that Moses said, I exceedingly fear and quake. But ye are come unto Mount Sion, and unto the city, the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to an innumerable company of angels, to the general assembly and the church of the firstborn, which are written in heaven, and to God, the judge of all, and to spirits of just men made perfect, and to Jesus, the mediator of the new covenant, and to the blood of sprinkling that speaketh better things than that of Abel. See that ye refuse not him that speaketh, for if they escape not who refused him that spake on earth, much more shall not we escape, if we turn away from him that speaketh from heaven, whose voice then shook the earth. But now he hath promised, saying, Yet once more I shake not the earth only, but also heaven. And his word, yet once more, signified the removing of those things that are shaken, as of things that are made, that those things which cannot be shaken may remain. Wherefore, we receiving a kingdom which cannot be moved, let us have grace whereby we may serve God acceptably with reverence and godly fear. For our God is a consuming fire. Now immediately, I'm going to turn right back here. Because there were several points that as I study, and I don't know how you all do it, but when I'm studying, I like to read through whatever section I've decided on, then go back again because I had seen a few points, and I like to try to bring it all together in my mind and so on. So, okay. So we started out, wherefore seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses. So we got a whole crowd of spirits, I'm thinking, maybe people, but I'm just thinking in general spirits in this case, that we're ready to run the test or the race, but we need to set ourselves in, like you were saying before, about, well, go ahead and say that. You were talking about getting ready for it.
Well, just to go back to what I started out with is, I think everybody is actually in this race because it's like the race of life of how you're going to complete this life. And, I was talking about what you truly have to do to prepare for the race. But one thing that the first sentence brought out to me in here, it could actually be that this is just a matter of the people around you. They're watching, they're seeing what you do in life, what you do in that race, that they can see your witness of how you are. So is that kind of comparing to what you were thinking? Because I don't know exactly what you wanted me to say on that.
Yeah, you actually even brought in another point that I hadn't thought of, was the fact that we're being a witness while we're running this race or while we're going through this test of life, whatever. So how we endure it affects others as far as what we're witnessing to them. And that was a point you just made that I hadn't put it in my own mind yet. But basically, don't get distracted when the sin that doth so easily beset us, I think, is like distractions. I've said in my mind, I want to attend church, be a good witness to people around me, show them that, I have love because God loved me, and so on. But there's things all the time that can come in, sin that can distract me. And, maybe at some point, well, like the other day, I was saying, well, I wasn't breathing too well, but, and you was giving me a fair excuse that maybe the oxygen in my brain wasn't fully there. But I realized people were saying things to me or about me, but I wasn't really acknowledging it. And it didn't really click in my head. And so then I was kind of concerned after the fact. I hope I didn't seem rude or inconsiderate or something, because it just wasn't clicking in my head. But that would be like a distraction, just a small distraction. But other things, we can, if we were okay, like some of the Olympics or the big sports guys or something, they're weightlifting or they're bodybuilding and stuff like that, and then they talk about like eating right and things to build muscles and protein and what have you.
Eating right, sleeping right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, even having the right footwear.
Uh-huh.
Just being conscious of their overall health.
Yeah.
To prepare for that race. And I kind of see this as not just a race, but as a marathon. And as you know, there's a difference.
Oh, yeah.
Many miles, a long time, long stretch.
Yeah.
And actually, I think this is a good comparison to us, because those people are preparing for that marathon, and their mindset is on that race, that they're not easily see things on the other side that aren't important to them, because they're only focused on that race.
Yeah.
And they maintain it with that good health and good eating and plenty of sleep and refraining from certain foods. Maybe, and from alcohol, maybe even from tobacco, because they know that that's not good for their lungs,
right,
for the race and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the right way to do it. To stay focused and just put blinders on to the sidelines. But here's the other thing, because here it's talking about to be careful not to be taken aside.
Well, that would be like
distracted.
That would be, like you said, the other side. Like the ones who are doing the race right would be like the ones that were trying to follow Jesus, and the others are the ones that are disregarding him, and not having him in his life. So they're kind of patchy on that race. They're not. Their intent isn't dedication for that race.
Yeah, and I was thinking. So let's go back to, let's say we're talking about these bodybuilders or whatever, or and they want to boost up. Well, now we've heard that there are these coaches and so on who encourage these guys to take this little drug here because it will help boost your muscles. It'll give you more stamina. It'll give you more whatever. Now, if they fall into that trap, which at first it seems like the right thing because the coach is telling you to do it, or even, I don't know if doctors encourage it or not. I really don't know that. But let's say, maybe a doctor endorses it and says, yeah, that whatever. But now let's say this bodybuilder gets into that. Yes, this really works for me. And then he starts taking more and more. And then he gets distracted. He's distracted off of the real course of what he's doing. First thing you know, he's looking for a high. And he gets addicted to drugs or alcohol or whatever it is, because that would be a distraction. And then compare that to the Christian race, a walk of life and so on. And the same kind of things can happen, and so what I'm thinking is, let's say, hypothetical situation here, but let's say the person, well, let's pretend it's me. Okay, and I really want to, have a good witness to other people. I want to show people that Jesus is the way and so on. But now my health is at risk right now, okay? And so I'm not feeling well. So now I'm kind of getting desperate, and I'm wanting, pretty much anything that will just help me get better, breathe better, or whatever it is. And so maybe at first I get too dependent on doctors. They want to get this drug or that drug or whatever it is. Go get this surgery. This will fix you right up. Well, that one didn't fix you up, but this one will fix you up. And now take this and do these drugs and so on. And pretty soon I'm dependent on the doctor, and I forget about God. And I forget that God is really the way. But maybe I still think that I'm following God right, and I still want to put out the good witness in the show. And so I make sure I go to church all the time, and I sit at the right place, and I always have something to say or a song to sing or whatever.
Well,
but I'm
you're
not
describing you.
I'm
just kidding.
You never know.
I'm just kidding.
But maybe that I've gotten distracted off, or I might go another way, because there's these churches or these preachers out there that pay us this money and you'll get healed. They don't say it quite like that, but
Right.
that's the background statement. You got to listen to these people, and you got to use good judgment when you're listening to other preachers and so on. And you really need to get back to the Bible yourself to research it and make sure that it's not just you're following the wrong direction. But I may be listening to the wrong preacher, and that preacher may be saying, if you haven't been healed, then you haven't done this or this right, or you need to do this other thing, and pretty soon, I could start worshiping some stray spirit. I could be starting to pray to a false Christ or some kind of a false God, or believing that if I just make more money and put more money in the plate, that that's going to get me healed, and that would be another really bad distraction. So I'm trying to make a comparison to something that we can actually physically see, and then the spiritual side of it too. And so
Well, you made a comment about that bodybuilder or whatever because of the coach, getting into drugs and stuff. But you can kind of look at that. That's a athlete that's not focused really upon that sport or that race or whatever, because he's trying to replace the work with something else. So he's not wanting to put the work into it.
yeah, that's
He's got lazy, and he's not really focused upon his sport or whatever. I mean, I can see there's some drugs that enhance maybe the time he can practice, or can enhance maybe muscles that he feels stronger. But he's dependent on the drug instead of putting the work in to get that same feeling.
right. So he's kind of like a false.
It's kind of like the devil's blinded him that,
Right.
you don't have to do that work. We'll supply that for you, type thing.
Yeah. There's definitely a parallel there.
And you also mentioned about the coach. That's something that I don't really see brought out in this chapter, but it's good to have not particularly the coach, but maybe a mentor or somebody, another Christian that you can talk to and that is on the same lines as you pretty much in that race too, and that it's always good to have a buddy you're racing beside in a marathon, and you see
Yeah.
that a lot, that there's a buddy they run with, until they get toward the end or closer to the end, then they kind of try to get ahead or whatever. But they encourage each other, and they push
Oops.
each other.
Wait, there was a pretend bleep in there. Anyway.
I'm
So
sorry.
yeah.
And then, so that would be like a coach. It would be encourager, or another person of the faith. You can talk and
Right.
encourage each other with.
But you know what? That also brings up another point. Remember when Jesus sent the disciples out he sent them out 2 by 2. So he gave each one of them a buddy. And he knew which one would pair up well with the other. And so, he already sent them out. Well, I think still he knows which of us pair up well with somebody else. And so if we're paying attention and we end up pairing up with the right person, then, that's ideal, because we can help each other along.
And give each other courage too, because sometimes, and I found this in my own life, you'll be braver or whatever when you have someone with you.
True.
You'll be a little bit more out there, or show more courage or whatever, And it's different, you got somebody along, it's a lot different, because even though they may not be saying anything, they give you that courage.
Yeah, that's true. And we do see that a lot, remember? I mean, even when we're kids, so like even a dare thing, which is not necessarily a good thing, but
Right.
a dare thing, I'll do it if you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, or you go with me and I'll do it. So, yeah, that's kind of a natural sense there. Okay. So here he's going on, I think, to kind of explain the first couple verses, or the first verse. So on verse 2, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. So to me, that's like he wrote our story, he's finishing our story of our faith. And so who else would we be more likely to look to for whatever we need but him alone? Who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross. So I'm sure it wasn't like a happy thing for him. But at the same time, he is God, and he was able to handle that. We couldn't. I know for sure I couldn't. I can barely handle some simple things that, like I think I'm going to fast today, and I mess it up. I just wimp out. And so, I hope I still make it in some little small corner in heaven, but, I wimp out, and I'm not very good at following through with some things. So I got to keep working on stuff like that. And that's the race I got to get into is, hold my faith better and be more enduring of the things I need to try to do. So he did it. And I wonder if the joy that he's speaking of here wasn't the joy of knowing that he could bring so many of us with him because he was paying our price. Otherwise, we'd all be gone to hell and there would be nobody in heaven. And but this way, there's a lot of us going to make it to heaven. And a lot of us it ain't. But at least we've run the race, the test, to see if we make it to the finish line or to the goal. We'll call it the goal in this case. So he despised the shame, and I think we use the word despising these days differently than what it really was supposed to depict in this interpretation here. I think despising the shame or ignoring the shame, I think would explain what we're talking about here. Because despising, I think of like spitting on it, like
Kind of bad, yeah.
yeah, of a bad thing. But I think this is more like ignoring or enduring the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. Isn't that going to be an amazing thing to see? The right hand side. I've noticed throughout Scripture there's a right hand and a left hand. There's some importance to that. And I can't remember if the sheep are on the right. I think the sheep are on the right hand and the goats are on the left hand, I think. Which brings another thing I always wondered. It took me a long time to figure out, how do you know the difference between a sheep and a goat? And why is that so important? And somebody said, well, because you look at them, because at first I thought, okay, so sheep have long hair and goats have short hair. That's not true. Because there's Angora goats and there's, all kinds of short-haired sheep and so on. So that wasn't it. And then I thought if they have a long tail or short tail, well, that's not it either. But even though most goats have short tails, and sheep, their tails are usually docked. So they naturally have a long tail. That's not really it either. And somebody said there's something about one bone in their vertebrae is different. Not that I can tell by looking at a live animal, but the main difference I've noticed is sheep are followers. Sheep will want to stay in a crowd, and they're willing to follow. They're not very good leaders. Goats, they're all about themselves. They're jumping. They're doing. They'll separate. They'll. They're intelligent. I don't know that sheep aren't intelligent. Maybe they are, but goats are definitely intelligent, and they will figure out how to unlatch gates. They can go under things. They'll squeeze through holes. They're all off on their own, kind of like it's all about me. Where the sheep are like, we're staying in a flock. It's about the whole group. We're kind of a team here. We're all grazing together. So I think that's the difference between the goats and the sheep. Goats don't listen too well, and sheep do. So that's why I'm saying I think the sheep are the ones on the right, and the goats are on the left, because Jesus is on the right side of the throne, and I don't remember what's on the left side the throne?
I think it's Moses, isn't it?
I don't know.
Seems like some places says it's Moses, but I'll have to look into that again.
Okay. That could be interesting, too.
But during the, this is an interesting thought, during, what's it called? My mind just went blank.
I don't know.
When you go before God, at the end.
Oh, the judgment?
The judgment.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting, Jesus on this side, Satan on that side.
Ooh, I don't even picture him in the picture at all. I picture him
I don't, but...
like across the way.
But that would make sense, though, because the person coming for is either for Jesus or follower of Satan.
That's true. That's true. We're either one way or the other. We're not in the middle. But putting it in that kind of perspective, what if Satan is standing on the other side of the gorge, just with his arms out to catch him? Aha, another one, and God
Catch him.
Yeah, well, that's true too. Yeah, like bring him over, bring him over.
You're on your own now. I drawed you here, but you're on your own now.
Yeah,
Be tormented.
Yeah, I can just picture him over there like cheering. Yeah, another one coming down to me, and him kind of knowing that he's going to burn up too, but he's already in suffering. But he don't want to go down alone. He wants to take as many as he can because he's trying his best to take everything from God that he can. And that's where we come into play. We're those little pawns on the board. He's trying to take as many of us away as he can. Mm-hmm. And it don't matter by hook or by crook. He's going to try to get us. We need to not be distracted from the race. Okay, so verse 3. For consider him that endured such contradiction of sinners against himself, lest ye be wearied and faint in your minds. Okay. Ye have not yet resisted unto blood, striving against sin. So, that blood, in some instances, I think, kind of refers to our actual, earthly bodies. Not the spiritual side, but the earthly side. And so, if we haven't resisted yet on our earthly things to be against sin, that means we're still sinners. Because we're still going with the sin and not going against the sin. And ye have forgotten the exhortation which speaketh unto you as unto children. Now here's where it starts getting more interesting to me, because he's comparing now the father to the children. How does the father correct the children? If he loves the children, he will correct them, because if he doesn't, whatever the problem is can grow into something even bigger, and then it's too late. So it's for the child's own good that, if the father just has to say something like, honey, you can't be getting this close to the edge of the cliff, you may fall off. And if that's enough, and the child just says, oh, yeah, and backs away, then, that's said and done. But a lot of children, how we are, we may be standing on the edge of the cliff. Nah, I can't fall off. Well, then it's time for the father to grab him and smack him and say, this pain's less than what you're going to get if you fall.
That's a interesting subject to how you started that, because today's kids, or most kids, they may back away, but they watch the father or the mother. Once they've turned away, then they're sneaking back to that edge again. Mm-hmm. Like they're making their own choice. Mm-hmm. They're not listening to the father and the mother. They're making their own choice. So that's kind of like with God, Of course, they don't think God can see him all the time. And, they know that God don't want them to do this, but, oh, surely he's not seeing this. And they're sneaking toward that sin closer and closer. Mm-hmm. Thinking they're going to get by with it this time.
Right. They're just testing it.
But you see, that kids nowadays, that's one thing I always, I didn't have kids of my own, but I always saw this. It's like a mother will say, Now, don't you do that. You do that one more time, I'm going to beat you. Which, in many ways, she shouldn't have said it like that, whatever. But,
Mm-hmm.
okay, if you are going to say something like that, make sure the kid's not doing it. And you stick to your word, whatever it is. You
Right.
know?
Right.
But you'll see her turn and start ignoring or involved in something else, not even knowing what that kid's doing. So that kid proceeds to go do whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and she's off and don't even know if he is or isn't.
Right.
And you see that so much. It's like they'll make a demand on the kid, whatever, but then they turn their back and they don't keep their word.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that shows that the mother truly loves the child, or are they just trying to do their motherly chore of raising the child?
It's probably somewhere in the middle. It's I guess, their way of not having to deal with the child,
Mm-hmm.
They've said their bit. They've said their motherly bit. But once they're not, watching the kid or making sure it was enforced,
Mm-hmm.
then they've done their end of the thing. It's up to the kid now. They're doing their own thing now, so they're leaving it to the kid.
Yeah.
But that's where a lot of parents screw up, mess up, because they're not seeing it's carried through their orders.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And that's fine, but that gives that kid a sense of, well, I don't have to listen to them because they don't care either way.
Yep. As long as they're not looking, I'm okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And that kind of can, like I said, reflect, on their attitude toward God. Surely God doesn't see it. I can
Right.
do this. God,
Right.
I've heard people say that God don't want me to do this, and Jesus loves me and is watching me all the time, but surely He's not seeing this.
Right. Yeah.
And that's like an attitude that's being passed down of how they're taught from, in life.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, they claim that they're Christians, but are they really showing it? By their fruits. Can we see that by their fruits?
Mm-hmm.
Are they really Christians? Or do they think that because of this situation or that, God's not looking, other people aren't looking, so therefore God doesn't see it?
Mm-hmm.
But where's that borderline, Yeah, I think maybe if we could all put this in our own minds and reflect for ourselves, like where is that borderline that I believe that God is watching or God is not watching? What determines that? Is it because I'm in a dark closet He doesn't see? Because it's nighttime and my eyes are closed, I was asleep, God doesn't see? Is it because I'm in the shower and there's water all over me, He's not looking? Or what is the situation? Because I was in church Sunday and now it's Monday morning.
This is my free time.
Yeah.
God will give me free because I went to church yesterday.
Right. And so I think if all of us could reflect on ourselves and decide each moment of the day to remember that God can see me. Just because I'm only thinking it in my head, does that mean God doesn't know? No. I don't know for sure if that means the devil can't tell or not, but God knows everything. Whether the devil's just putting stuff in there and hoping that, I eat it, or in other words, play on that little thing he put in my head. I don't know that means he can read my mind, but sometimes I concern myself with that. But I can definitely say that God knows our hearts, He knows our intents, and He knows all about us. Therefore, when I don't feel like I do well praying out loud, like people can hear me or something. Because, my words, sometimes I just don't even know the words. I don't think in words, I think in pictures. And so sometimes...
But how many times do you tell me that God can take care of that?
Well, He can, but that's not saying He's going to for each situation I'm in.
If you're praying out loud, you don't think He would give you the words that's needed, though?
Well, I think
I
that's...
I don't know how to pray sometimes, but when things come to mind, it's like, oh, well, I can need to pray about that.
Yeah, and I do that within, you know.
But you can do that without the too.
Well, I don't always have words. And,
But you need.
but I think,
But if you try, it's never failed you though, because
well,
I've heard you pray, and you do fine.
at
You
that
don't
particular
you don't
time.
have to make it a extra long prayer or whatever, you know.
Well, that's true. And sometimes I do concern myself with that, even though I know that extra long prayer is that's just trash, you know. Like, I don't need to say 5 things. Oh Lord, please hear me. Oh Lord, I'm asking. Oh Lord, I'm in front of you. You know, He knows where I'm at. I don't have to keep repeating that. That's just making a lot of words, and that makes me think of what was it, the Pharisees or whatever, making a show of their loud prayers or something. But yeah, my words sometimes are so simple that most people would think, "Are we listening to a kid here?" But
Yeah, you just said the point. What other people are thinking. Is it what they think or what God thinks?
right. But if I'm doing it out loud for or in a group,
But you're not doing
then
it for the
it's
people though.
but isn't it kind of like when we do that? Doesn't it kind of like helping to remind each of us what we're asking for? We're kind of together on this teamwork asking.
Depends on when you're doing the prayer, what you're doing the prayer for though.
Okay. Well, I think of
Not
like,
always, no.
to me, okay, like when I was a kid, we'll go back to childhood things here. I kind of think of praying out loud, like in a church group or prayer meeting or whatever, as kind of like we're all kind of together on the same request or the same whatever it is. Like, so when I was a kid, all my siblings and I, we'd be out playing, and one of us would say, "Hey, wouldn't it be great to have a popsicle?" And then the others are like, "Yeah, maybe we could go get a popsicle." Well, somebody's got to go ask. Somebody has to voice this to ask for the popsicle. And so then it's kind of like, you go ask, no, you go ask, and so on. But whoever asks, we're asking for the whole group. We're not like if it was my turn to ask, I wouldn't go in there and say, "Mommy, can I have a popsicle?" I would say, "Mommy, can we have a popsicle?" Because I'm speaking for the whole group. And when we're praying in a group, that's what I feel like. We're kind of like to help speak for everybody, to remind each person what
So you
we're
think
doing.
people's actually going to tell you that they didn't like how you prayed, so therefore they weren't accepting that prayer?
No, no.
Okay, then you're like thinking the wrong way then, because that's what you're telling me. If I can't pray and they don't accept it, then I'm not doing it right. That's what you're saying to me.
I am?
Yeah. 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 You're saying that they're going to think you're silly and they think it's like a kid but it's not about them. But even if you do feel like it is, I mean, you think somebody's really going to come and say to you, "No, I don't accept that prayer. That wasn't how I'm thinking, so therefore I don't accept that prayer you just did."
Well, I think it's more like, I think maybe I'm more concerned because, like, as a group, we've kind of decided, we're concerned about the servicemen, the family of someone who is deceased, or someone who's ill, or different things like that. And if I don't remember to put that in there, then I haven't really done adequately.
How many prayers have you heard where everybody on that prayer list was listed? How many prayers have you heard where Jim hadn't forgot to add somebody that had just been brought up in the service?
I
How
don't
many
know.
times?
I guess I don't sit around and judge everybody else who's praying it, other
Then you
than it
shouldn't
sounded
think
good.
that they should judge yours then. Isn't that an interesting thought? You got to see your face right now. You're still not getting what I'm saying, I don't think.
Yeah, I am. I'm just trying to process all that because I'm thinking that kind of makes sense, but it kind of don't to me. I kind of get what you're saying. You're saying you're saying that I'm not as inadequate as I think I am.
And nobody's going to remember everything. You're only going to remember what God brings back to your memory, your mind, to call out in the prayer.
I
You know
think
what I'm
that,
saying?
yeah, maybe that kind of points what I'm thinking. I
Yeah.
feel like that's like not my calling, like that's not something that I've been blessed with the ability to do well.
And that I understand. And I mean, I guess I'm all right praying or whatever. I don't know. But I feel, and this is back to my upbringing, that if I'm in the service and there's man there that is very capable of praying, that it's a man's job to do it. You know? Because women's, the whole history has been second class members, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's back to my bringing, That's why sometimes, he asks me to pray, and I'm like, you got 3 men back here, Which, and I know Scott has never prayed, and up till that one car show, I never heard Gary pray. Which was all fine, for me and Gary and whatever, and he asked me to, I would. But, if there's other guys in there that will pray, then I feel like it's more their job.
Mm-hmm.
But you haven't even said that. You just said I'm inadequate and I can't pray.
Well, and yeah, out loud or whatever. Yeah, I mean, there are some things that when I feel like that I should do them, I do them. But I've never really felt like I'm adequate at doing that. I feel like, more like, well, like reading. Okay, if you want me to read something, yeah, I'd be glad to try to read it. I don't have a problem with that. And of course, if I'm reading it, I try to put the emphasis on the words that makes the most sense to do it. I don't want to read monotone. That'll put somebody to sleep real quick, won't it? So hopefully I don't put people to sleep when I'm reading. But, I'm willing to do that because I feel like I'm able to do that.
But you feel like you're not able to pray.
Not out loud. If I say I'm praying for you, it's probably in my head more than anything else because it's more of a picture thing for me. I have a picture language in my head, not a, I can do English, of course, but.
You're fine at praying. That's all I got to say on that. I'll back off on that.
Yeah.
I do have a verse, or something to look at, but we're not there yet, so.
Okay,
and I
well.
don't remember where we stopped.
Well, since we've been
7,
at this for close to 3/4 of an hour, and if you'd like to,
just flip over to it.
Yeah, go over to that. Let's talk about that.
I gotta find it again. I had my hand on it, but when we turned, I lost the
Whoops.
thing.
Okay. Well, I know if you've turned a page, I definitely had to turn a page. Do you remember a word in it? Maybe I can pick that out.
I know it was either 11, 12, or 13. Why don't we just read that? Maybe it'll come out.
Okay. And we'll have to turn back. Okay, let's
Once
go.
you start at 10, I think that'd be best.
Okay. For they verily for a few days chastened us after their own pleasure, but he for our profit, that we might be partakers of his holiness. Now, no chastening for the present seems to be joyous. Is that it? I heard you take a breath, like maybe that was it.
No,
But
I had something else, though.
Oh, okay. But grievous. Nevertheless, afterward it yieldeth the peaceable fruit of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby. Wherefore, lift up the hands which hang down, and feeble knees, and make straight paths for your feet, lest that which is lame be turned out of the way, but let it rather be healed.
Okay, something else came to mind, but the other I'm not really catching on. I think I know, but I'm not sure. But this verse 10 that you started is chasing after, so that kind of gives me an idea of in the race that you got somebody behind you chasing you, trying to get your attention, trying to get to turn you aside from what you're doing. But you got to remember, keep on the race, keep going. Don't let them chase you down or get you sidetracked once again.
Well, that word is a lot like this word. I said that word is a lot like this word. Chasing and chasing.
Chasten and chasing.
Yeah.
And then I think it was a mention the exercise, but it brought a certain thing to mind, but I don't really recall it now.
Oh, okay.
But on the summary over here, though, I found it reminded me of actually coming to the summary of if you follow on that race, what your reward is going to be, what you're going to actually achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And that probably stands out in verse 28. Wherefore we receiving a kingdom which cannot be moved, let us have grace whereby we may serve God acceptably with reverence and godly fear, for our God is a consuming fire. And I can imagine at the end of a race, you're going to be feeling a little bit of fire in your feet.
Well, yeah, I suppose so. If you move those feet fast, that friction will get you.
So do you see as kind of a conclusion if you run that race?
Yeah. Well, definitely the part that we should really hang in there and try our best to do it right, because the end will be worth it. That's how I see that in the end, the last part there. So yeah.
But yeah, it even says, for if they escape not who refused him the sake on earth, much more shall not we escape, if we turn away from him that speaketh from heaven, whose voice then shook the earth. But now he has promised, saying, yet once more I shake not the earth only, but also heaven. And in this word, yet once more, signify the removing of those things that are shooken, which I was totally out in left field. But it reminds me, like I said, verse 28, that your reward if you finish the race, or at the end of the race, if you stay on the pathway.
Yeah, that part 26 is almost like an ending statement in a way, because he's saying, he's already shook the earth once. Or to me, I'm wondering if he's referring to the fact that that Jesus came that to change things. I mean, it kind of turned everybody's spiritual world upside down, how they thought about it, because it seemed so backwards from what the Jews and everything had made religion come to be. Nobody could keep up with it because they had stuck in so many of their own little rules and regulations.
I think that brings to mind that there's been different events going on that's shooken the earth, like the COVID.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that just turned things upside down all over the world, just not America, all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And then for America, I think it really shook and opened up some people's eyes about that football player who, fell down dead on the field and then come back alive.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing.
Yeah,
and a lot of people did notice that. I mean,
and there are some events I guess I'm not even probably aware of, but there's stuff out there that is shaking the earth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Trying to open people's eyes.
And down through our history, we've heard of so many things. Well, like Hitler, that was a thing,
and that's true. But if you're not really into history and stuff, I mean, how many people they've heard it. Everybody, I'm sure, has heard it.
Mm-hmm.
But how are they really familiar or really know the story?
Mm-hmm.
And not knowing really the story, how many of them is just disregarding, oh, that's just history.
Right.
That's just something that happened way back, and it probably didn't even happen like they're saying, type thing.
Yeah, they might. Yeah.
So it's things that's not close to home is what I'm getting at.
Right. Well, something that amazed me, speaking of Hitler, was when I was a kid in school, that was already part of history. And I did not realize that Hitler was still alive when I was born. I thought, history was like
way off. Yeah.
Like 40, 80 years ago.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. There's events that even happened since then that people just not really aware of it. It's like not part of their immediate history, or they don't think.
Right. And yeah, so I guess as the older I've gotten, the more I realize how short time has been since Jesus walked on this earth, and other historical events, that's kind of brought that to my mind. Mm-hmm. but that helps me to realize how much more crucial this word is, and how much more I need to pay attention to it, because it's more real than just reading a history book or some English language something or the other, or math or whatever. It's more real than any of those.
And then we have other events that's turned up the earth, and there's people that won't let it go as history. They're like keeping it alive, and I'm referring to like the slave movement and stuff. It's like there's a lot of people that just won't let that go. I mean,
Right.
they feel like they're being mistreated or disrespected or whatever, when that's only kept alive because of how they see it.
Mm-hmm.
Not because that's the way it is, but that's how they still are perceiving it.
So they're still pointing the finger at something else to try to make themselves feel better or make themselves feel more righteous. Would you say that kind of fits?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So it's kind of like, let's see, what is it we're told? I was trying to think, what's the name for that type of stuff here, that not to point the finger, or how does the Bible refer to it? Jesus talks about don't spend your time looking at everybody else's situation, look at your own.
The mote in the eye, or the beam in the eye, log in the eye.
Yeah, that's one of them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, take care of yourself, and don't be pointing the finger at everybody else and trying to claim it's somebody else's fault.
Mm-hmm. And I see that as a real problem in the U.S. because, they're still claiming that all that, against them and stuff, and they're still using it as an excuse that, somebody say something wrong to them, they're just going to pull out a gun and shoot them because they have the right, because they're the one that's been misused.
Right.
And it's like, no.
Yeah, not true.
It's not right for you to kill another human, like it's not anybody else either,
Right. Because, and that was another thing, totally off the subject, I guess, in a way, is, we have the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill, right? Mm-hmm. But then there was times when God told armies to go kill another nation or so on.
To complete them or take them all out.
To wipe them out, yeah. And sometimes I had a hard time.
I did too, yeah.
Putting that in my head.
Yeah.
But I also noticed there's a point in here, and I don't remember where it is or how it's exactly worded, but it defines the difference between killing and murdering. There's a time, in fact, I think it's in the Old Testament, one of them is, there's a time to kill and a time to make life. Something like that.
In either Proverbs or Ecclesiastes.
Okay, Ecclesiastes.
Yeah. Because I like that. The whole thing. It's time. It tells you a bunch of different times to do this and that, even sing and dance.
Yeah. So, but there's also, the cities of refuge for the people who accidentally had killed somebody or something.
Yeah.
That that they could go, that the family couldn't come and get them.
Mm-hmm. Revenge.
And it kind of lines out there the difference, because if the man killed someone else, and I think the example was something like the head of the axe flew off and hit the other one in the head or something. So that was an accident. It wasn't he intended. He wasn't angry. He didn't intentionally go after them with means to hurt or destroy. Mm-hmm. It was just something that happened. And so that was killing, but it wasn't murder. Murder is, intentionally heading out to someone with intent to harm. And
with grievance or anger, or what's another few words? That would, what I'm saying, yeah.
Right.
Premeditated.
Premeditated.
Is the word we use now.
Yeah, that's the new dinosaur term, I'll say. Mm. People say there's no dinosaurs in the Bible, but they don't say, well, the word wasn't invented yet. There's lizards and dragons and unicorns, and so pretty sure those are dinosaurs, just under a different name. Guess the difference between the frying
I'm
pan
surprised they
and
never mentioned cockroaches.
they may have, because
They
those
had
would
to
have
be
been
in there. I don't know.
those would be the creeping things. There's a lot of creeping things, which I think are
I think they
insects.
would have gave them that name way back then, though.
Well, there's another thing. I have never heard anybody say something. Well, the Bible doesn't say insects. No, it doesn't use the word insects. That's our terminology. It says creeping things, creeping and crawling things, and flying things, which involves a lot of bugs. And they don't say bugs either. They do say flies and
They don't say bugs.
grasshopper. Not grass. They say locusts. There's
Locusts,
flies.
yeah. There's grasshoppers. I'm pretty sure.
Do they say grasshoppers in there?
I think so.
I think they call them locusts. I know for sure they say locusts. There's flies.
I think I've
There's
heard grasshoppers in there too.
what was the other insect that I've heard of in there? That you don't see anything about spiders.
Scorpions.
Scorpions, yeah.
Yeah.
Those would be insects that are in
And
there.
that would be a type of spider too, wouldn't it? No.
No,
it wouldn't.
no,
it wouldn't.
no, they're not spiders.
No.
Actually, I think those are related to lobsters, but I'm not sure about that. I think they are.
Well, then we can eat them.
Ew. Oh,
Chocolate
yeah.
covered.
Oh, yeah. It seems like there are one or two more insects listed,
Right.
but anyway, they don't list every single thing. Just like it didn't list every single animal that got on the ark.
But those had to be involved in some kind of the diseases or something that was caused. Because of how nasty they are and how they're everywhere.
That's
Be
our
everywhere.
opinion. It's our opinion. But you know what?
That's not your opinion.
Not necessarily, because they found, and I've seen it too.
You know, I think that was probably the first Spanish word that I ever recognized.
What?
Cockroach.
That's a Spanish word?
No. I had, in the daycare, I had a little guy, and he was Spanish, but he knew English too.
Mm-hmm.
But the only way he knew to pronounce them was the Spanish word, which I can't say it now, but when he said it in the sentence and talking about it, I automatically knew what it was.
Oh, really?
That was the first Spanish word I recognized, yeah.
Huh.
It's a cucaracha or something is what it said.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And
that.
of course, I just laughed. I didn't tell his mom and stuff because she'd have probably beat him, but
Oh.
him telling about his whole house was full of them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, kids tell the truth, you know.
Uh-huh.
And you just got to look at it that way. Facts are facts. Not everybody's the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I forgot where I was heading with that one. So we probably got to bring this to a close.
All bugs are listed, is what you
Yeah,
said,
not all bugs are listed.
as we was talking about.
Oh, I was going to tell you. So, I had problems. I told you I had the bug killers come in. They sprayed the place and everything, which is pretty cool. It's really cut back on the amount of bugs around here. The spiders, especially, I noticed them. That was kind of icky. But the ants were still in here for a little while. And I realized, because we had some flies, so we'd been smacking a lot of flies. And one of the days I had smacked a fly, and there were a couple laying on the counter because I'm still smacking them. And here comes an ant and picks up that dead fly and carries it off. And I'm thinking, there's not all bad about ants. It looks to me like they're clearing away my dead flies. And I have heard that cockroaches eat ants.
Oh, I
And-
didn't hear that.
And let me think, what is it that ants eat? Ants eat, well, different ants eat different things. There are ants that eat aphids, which I don't think we have an aphid problem in the house. But there are ants that eat fleas. So if you have flea problems, maybe those kind of ants wouldn't be that bad for a while. And mice will eat crickets. And so maybe mice aren't all that bad. If you got a cricket problem, maybe the mice will help take care. Oh, and if you have rats, you won't have mice because the rats will kill the mice.
I'd
So-
rather have the mice than the rats, though.
Well, I agree with that. In a way, I do agree with that. Rats are smarter, I think.
Or the cats to get rid of the mice.
Yeah. So it's the old song, the woman
Yeah,
who swallowed
yeah,
the
the woman,
flies
yeah.
or spider or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. But not all insects are totally bad. You just gotta
Yeah, well,
look
no,
at them.
God made them with a purpose.
That's right.
That's what you gotta realize. They were made with a purpose.
Yeah. So even though we feel creeped out by a lot of things, doesn't mean they're bad. And they can be annoying for certain things.
Unless they're in your territory.
Yeah, if they're, yeah. I mean, I actually like mice. They're cute. They're cute little animals. I like them for pets, but I don't like them running loose in my house because they make a mess. They smell bad. Yeah. But that doesn't mean they're all bad. It just means I don't want them in my house. Keep them outside somewhere. I saw one run across the floor the other night. Like, oh, I guess we still have mice.
Now I guess we're letting up her job again.
Yeah. Yep. So, anyway, but we probably ought to bring this to a close because it's been like an hour.
Yep.
So, until next time, people, if you happen to catch us somewhere in between, apparently look for us at kind of random times because we seem to be never on time.
Let us know what you do for your race, how you prepare for your race.
Good plan, yeah. Yeah. What kind of exercise you do or spiritual food you eat. Okay, well, till next time, have a good week.
I think that turned out pretty well.